The mall was buzzing that Saturday afternoon. Laughter echoing from the food court, footsteps scattering across shiny tiles, music drifting faintly from nearby stores. But in the middle of all that noise, a cry cut through, sharp and trembling. Maya froze. Just a few steps away, a little boy stood alone near the fountain. His cheeks were wet with tears, his tiny fists clutching a stuffed bear like it was the only thing he had left in the world. "Mom!" he cried out, his voice breaking. People passed by, glancing at him, but no one stopped. Maya's heart clenched. She dropped the shopping bag in her hand and crouched down. "Hey, sweetheart, are you lost?" The boy sniffled, nodding, his wide brown eyes filled with fear. She gently took his hand, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. "Don't worry, I'll help you find your dad." But what Maya didn't know was that the father who would soon arrive wasn't just any man, and his identity would turn her entire world upside down. If this moment already stirred something in you, stay with us, because what happens next will leave you stunned. Maya's life had never been simple. She worked long shifts at a small bookstore downtown, the kind of job that barely paid the bills but gave her a sense of peace. Surrounded by shelves of stories, she often dreamed of lives braver, brighter, and fuller than her own. But behind the counter, reality pressed in. Rent notices slipped under her apartment door. Medical bills from her mother's illness stacked high in the kitchen drawer. And every night, as she walked home alone through dim streets, she fought the gnawing thought that maybe her sacrifices would never be enough. Still, Maya carried a softness the world hadn't taken from her. She remembered what it felt like to be small, scared, and overlooked. That's why, whenever she saw a lost child, she never just walked by. She couldn't. Because once, years ago, she had been that child, standing in a crowded market, crying out for a mother who never came back. And though she had survived, the emptiness of that day never left her. So when she saw that boy by the fountain, his stuffed bear damp with tears, it wasn't just kindness that made her stop. It was recognition. But what Maya didn't know was that helping him would not only reopen old wounds, it would draw her into a truth that would challenge everything she thought she knew about chance, fate, and who people really are. Maya gripped the boy's small hand gently but firmly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Ethan," he whispered, his lower lip trembling. "Okay, Ethan. We're going to find your dad, I promise." She scanned the crowd, couples laughing, teenagers scrolling on their phones, shoppers rushing past. But no one seemed frantic, no one seemed to be searching. The mall's loudspeaker echoed some generic announcement, but it drowned beneath the boy's sniffles. Maya led him to a nearby bench. "Do you remember what store you last saw him in?" Ethan shook his head. His grip on the bear tightened until his knuckles turned white. Her chest ached. She dug into her bag, pulling out a small pack of tissues and her water bottle. "Here," she said, offering both with a smile she hoped would steady him. "We'll sit right here until we figure it out." As Ethan wiped his eyes, he looked up at her with unexpected trust. "You're nice." Most people just walked away. The words hit her harder than she expected. How many people had ignored him? How many times had she herself been ignored when she needed help? Suddenly, a deep voice broke through the noise. "Maya!" Her entire body stiffened. She hadn't heard that voice in years, and yet, she knew it instantly. She turned slowly, heart pounding, and there he was. The man rushing toward them wasn't just Ethan's father. He was someone Maya thought she would never see again. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The man striding toward them was taller, sharper than she remembered, but the eyes, those same piercing eyes that once looked into hers with promises he never kept. "Daniel," she whispered, disbelief lacing her voice. He froze for a fraction of a second, as if her presence knocked the air out of him. But then his gaze shifted to Ethan, and in an instant, he scooped his son into his arms, holding him close. "Buddy, I told you to stay by the counter." Daniel's voice was half stern, half trembling with relief. Ethan clung to him, whispering, "I was scared, Dad. But she helped me." He pointed at Maya. Daniel's eyes flicked back to her, full of unspoken history. "Thank you," he said, his tone controlled, polite, almost too polite. Maya's chest tightened. The man who had once walked out of her life without explanation now stood before her as a father. Stable, successful-looking, and untouchable. She wanted to turn away, but Ethan's wide eyes held her there. "Daddy," Ethan piped up, innocent and unaware of the storm in Maya's chest. "She should come with us. She's nice." The suggestion hung in the air like a dare. Maya's pulse quickened, and to her shock, Daniel hesitated. Later, as they walked together toward the food court, an awkward silence pressing between them, Maya caught sight of something that made her heart stop. Two men in suits, clearly out of place, followed a few steps behind, their gazes locked on Daniel. They weren't shoppers. They weren't friends. Their eyes were sharp, their movements deliberate. Maya instinctively pulled Ethan closer to her side, her protective instincts surging. "Daniel," she whispered urgently. "Who are they?" Daniel's jaw tightened, his expression darkening. "They're here because of me," he said, voice low. "And if you stay, you'll find out why." Maya froze, torn between walking away and being pulled deeper into a world she never asked to re-enter. Because Daniel wasn't just Ethan's father. He was a man with secrets that could upend everything. Maya's footsteps slowed as Daniel guided Ethan into a quiet corner of the mall, away from curious eyes. The two men in suits remained at a distance, watchful, their presence heavy in the air. She folded her arms, her voice sharp. "What's going on, Daniel? Who are they?" Daniel exhaled, the weight of years pressing down on his shoulders. He looked nothing like the boy she once loved. The boy who had promised forever and then vanished. Now, standing before her, he was polished, guarded, and hiding something big. "Their security," he finally said. "Mine." Maya's brow furrowed. "Security? For what? Who exactly are you?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening, before lowering his gaze to Ethan. The little boy clung to his bear, looking up at his father with absolute trust. "I didn't leave you back then because I stopped caring," Daniel said quietly, his voice breaking the years of silence between them. "I left because my family pulled me into something I couldn't escape. My father built a company worth billions. Maya. When he died, it fell on me." Maya's breath caught. The suits. The distance. The walls he carried in his eyes. It all clicked. "You're the CEO," she whispered. Daniel nodded once. "Every move I make is followed. Every person I let close is scrutinized. Back then, I thought staying away from you was protecting you." His voice wavered. "But it cost me the only thing I ever really wanted." Her throat tightened, emotions colliding inside her. "And now, what do you want, Daniel?" He glanced at Ethan, then back at her. For the first time in years, his voice softened. "Now, I want to make things right." The world around them blurred, the chatter of the mall fading, the hum of life quieting, until all that was left was the sting of the past and the weight of a second chance. But Maya knew that forgiveness wasn't easy. And before she could decide, Daniel would have to prove he was more than a title. For a moment, Maya said nothing. She could feel the old ache rising, the nights she'd spent wondering why he left, the bitterness of unanswered questions. And now, here he was, standing in front of her with a son, a billion-dollar empire, and a past drenched in secrets. Her instinct screamed to protect herself. But then she looked at Ethan, small, innocent, trusting, and something shifted. Daniel crouched down to his son's level, brushing the boy's hair back gently. "Ethan, this is Maya," he said, his voice steady but thick with meaning. "She's someone very important to me. Someone I never should have lost." Ethan beamed, his little hand reaching out to Maya. "Can we all eat together? Please." Maya's chest tightened. She should have said no, walked away, built her walls higher. But instead, she found herself nodding. They ended up at a quiet corner cafe in the mall. The suits lingered nearby, but for once, Daniel ignored them. He pulled off his jacket, loosened his tie, and for the first time in years, looked like the man she once knew. He didn't talk about wealth or business. He asked about her life. He listened. And when the check came, he didn't just pay for the meal. He slid a folded envelope across the table. Confused, Maya opened it to find a letter of guarantee. Funds to cover her mother's medical bills in full. Her breath caught. "Daniel, I can't." "You can," he interrupted softly. "Because this isn't charity. This is me owning the pain I caused. You carried burdens alone that I should have carried with you. Let me start here." Tears blurred Maya's vision. For the first time in years, she didn't just see the CEO. She saw the man who once held her heart. But now, he was finally proving he could hold her trust. As Ethan giggled between them, sipping his cocoa with foam on his nose, Maya realized the truth. Sometimes the people we least expect to return bring with them the healing we didn't know we needed. She didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, hope sat beside her at the table. Because Daniel had shown her, not with promises, but with action, that the past didn't have to define the ending. If Maya's choice to help a lost child could lead to healing, forgiveness, and hope, imagine what the next story might awaken in you. Don't stop here. Watch our Kindness That Changed Everything playlist and let the next twist remind you of the power of second chances. And if this story touched you, subscribe now and join our Soul Twist family, because the next story might just change your life too.